Hello, everybody. Welcome to Landing America. Today I have a special guest, Jessica Berdah. Jessica got her visa in the US through investing. So her story is really interesting, and that's why I invited her to talk about it. So, Jessica, welcome.
Thank you, Tatiana.
I'm very happy you accepted my invitation. Tell us a little bit about your background, childhood, education. Who are you?
Thank you for the introduction. So, I grew up in France in a suburb of Paris, and I grew up an only child with parents that are very helpful and always wanted the best for me. I had a very simple and normal childhood and teenage years. My parents liked traveling every winter to escape the cold in Paris. So I have been coming to the US a few times, which really gave me the taste for traveling. I grew up with my dad grooming me for his company, taking over business because he was his own boss.
When was the first time you started thinking about America as a place to live?
Growing up, I really liked all the American TV shows, so obviously it kind of planted the seed in my mind. It was always something that was somewhere in the back of my mind. Studying in the US was planted as the way to be successful. Early on, around like 12 or 13 years old, I started telling my parents that I wanted to become an American student at some point. So this is what I did eventually.
Did your family support you?
In the first few years, they thought it was more of a crazy idea because of the movies, and then they eventually realized that it was more of an investment in the way that some universities here are well recognized all over the world, and it would be a real investment into a job and a career for me.
What did you study here?
I started studying my undergrad in France, and when I came here, I did a master in public relations and corporate communications.
Was it here in Miami?
It was here in Miami.
How long did it take?
The master degree is 2 years. I needed a little more time to finish my thesis, so I was able to stay 2.5 years.
When did you finish studying?
December 2013.
Have you been scared?
Luckily, no. When I started studying, I did the first year in New York, which completely randomly happened to be the weirdest thing. I couldn't find a place to stay, and for me to transition into finding an apartment, I was able to stay in a girls' housing attached to a church. And so it was supposed to be for French people. So I started making a lot of friends within this housing system for the first month. It was pretty interesting because it kind of helped me have and make friends to go out and make more friends. And so there was also something of like feeling safe being with people who speak the same language and have the same culture. Eventually coming to Miami was completely different for me, but I already came on vacations. I knew the place, so it wasn't so hard. And I came with the idea that people already had a life. I knew that I wouldn't be someone's best friend from the master degree. Everybody was in their 20s. Most of them had grown up here. Obviously, you're not going to be getting into someone's life and be best friend from one day to the next.
What is your story since you finished your school until now? Tell us more about the visa that you got. How did you get it?
When I went back to France, I worked really hard to invest in multiple companies that allowed me to build my wealth somehow. In 2016, I found this visa that was allowing me to be a prospect investor. And I came here, started looking for investment. And the first idea was to get an E2 visa that did not even give access to a green card, but it was given us 5 years renewable. So that was the first idea. But I stayed the whole year, and then my lawyer told me, just don't come back for at least 9 months because you're going to be having problems at customs. And so I worked as a real estate developer in France, And comes March, a year after I left, and in the south of France, in this real estate salon, and it's called the MIPIM. It's in Cannes. It's really, grandiose. People from all over the world come and present really amazing real estate projects. And so every year we were going there, and comes the end of the week, and we go down to the international area, and I see this map of Florida, and it points just one town, which is a town that I know very well, where I had an apartment. So I was just like, how come? There is this map right there. And the person was introducing a visa that was giving access to a green card. And the whole thing that he started explaining was that they were building a new building for people who were coming out of the hospital and needed to stay longer. And they were looking for investor. And because this building was creating jobs, it would give access to an EB-5 visa. I started prospecting. I took the papers. I called one of my very good friends here in Miami, who is a real estate agent, and I asked her all about this and to get more information on the EB-5, and that was very, very interesting for me. But what she told me, and she explained very well, and that is one of the things people need to understand, there are two types of EB-5. One is equity and one is property. Equity means you have shares in something, which was the case in that building next to the hospital. It would allow people to stay after they are recovering. It would allow families to stay next to someone who is at the hospital, but you would own a certain amount. You don't really know the percentage, but pretty much for the visa you needed to put 500,000. It doesn't mean that your 500,000 would still be worth 500,000 5-10 years down the line. My friend started introducing me to the idea of EB-5 through property. Turns out Paramount was building and was giving this EB-5 through property. So we started researching, and within 2 months, I was already filing and I was buying the property, and probably 6 months later, filing for my visa.
What gave you this sense of, yeah, this is something that I should do?
I spent a lot of time researching visas and the way to come since I left in 2013. It was always an interest of mine. I always wanted to do it legally. I have a backstory of a friend who came and played music and got money from playing music in New York and was banned from the US territory for 10 years. So just the idea of being banned from this place that I love so much was out of question. I would rather just, stay away for 9 months because my lawyer told me so, than ruin all my chances. When this opportunity was offered to me, I saw it as a sign that it was finally coming. The wait for the visa was about 16 months. When I came back and talked to my lawyer, I didn't really know that we had all the apps to look at your file and, follow up. But I looked after 11 months being like, it's coming. And no, the wait time had not only doubled, it had more than tripled. It was 35 to 46 months, and I was already 11 months down the line, but I was nowhere close to the end.
It felt like never ending.
It felt like never ending. I wasn't really sure if it was going to happen. I was a little scared, honestly, because I was somehow aging and I wanted to build this new life here, and I felt like I had to wait for this new life to get started.
But you already invested that money, correct?
I did.
So, and there was a possibility for you to not get a visa?
It's not so much about the possibility of not getting the visa. It is because the USCIS is really looking through all of your files. So my file was really big, and they are going through all your bank accounts, going through all the donations. My parents helped me since I was a baby, like small amounts, because in France, succession is very, very regulated. So because my parents donated me money when I was 10 years old, then they had to check their bank account. They are very specific on laundering money, donations that are not regulated, everything that is not done perfectly is just not working for them. You never know. I've done everything right. I've done everything I could to make it perfect. But eventually, if they find a grain of salt, which I don't even know if there would be, but you never know.
You would end up buying a property here but not being able to have visa and live here.
That is a possibility.
You bought apartment before that, after your school. Could you apply for investor visa with that apartment as well, or that's a different category?
No, because what happened with Paramount is that they are the real estate developer and they are the ones that are filing with the government to make their building accepted as an investor visa. So because they had done that ahead of time, then and only then people were able to apply on this project. They were offering investor visa. I think they could have done up to 400 people, but they only let 200 of them because you have to have employment for 2 people for 5 years for your visa to be lending into a green card. This was pretty much the idea. And they were like, in case of a crisis or recession, we don't want people's visa to be denied because we don't have enough employment. So we're going to go down to 200 people and we are sure that we're going to be maintaining this amount of jobs.
I see. Did you have to invest 500,000 or did you have to pay the whole amount of the property you bought there?
I had to pay the whole amount, and actually almost twice now, because this is the little problem that happened with the timeline that went a little backward down the line, is that you are spending 500K, but you are not closing on the apartment because this 500K is being used to create jobs. So for 4 years, I got delayed closing, so I owned the only remaining part. The apartment was about 730,000, and so this makes about 30%. So I owned 30% of the apartment, and the 70% were owned still by Paramount. Legally, it said on the documents that after 4 years, I had to get it. Well, what happens when you didn't get your visa yet? As I said earlier, the wait time was supposed to be 16 months. They only return your money after the 2 years of conditional residency. So this hadn't happened before. I had to put the 500K again to close on the apartment. So now I'm waiting for my 2 years of conditional residency to be over so that I can get my 500 back, because I had to put this amount twice.
Wow, that's crazy.
It is a lot. It's a lot. It's draining.
You had to put million down to have apartment that's 75.
Yeah.
Wow, incredible.
But, it's been a year already. So I set foot in June last year. I feel like I have a whole year ahead, and then this money comes back and it's just going to be very helpful.
So you moved in here fully last year in June?
Yes.
Are you happy here?
So happy. I'm very happy that we moved, because before, when I came and I was by myself, it felt a little awkward, to say the least. My friends were working on weekdays. I was looking for investment. I would spend sometimes a whole week without leaving my house because I would go through a bunch of papers or wait for the real estate agent to call me back. And so for days at a time, I would not see anybody. Right now, I'm a mom, so I get to go out, build a community around my son's school. I made friends through his school, and then people talk to us because, well, my kid is cute, so they would be started to talk to him at the pool and play with him. Building a community here has been so great and so helpful.
So do you live in the apartment you invested in or somewhere else?
No, I bought an apartment years ago just because I fell in love with the place. The view, I I know a lot of people talk about Paris and the Eiffel Tower and the old town and everything, but for me, there's nothing better than some of the Miami views with the ocean, the beach, and I'm not even on the beach, I'm on the canal, but this view and the lights is, oh my God, I absolutely adore being here.
So, what about the Paramount apartment you rented?
Yes, so the apartment is rented. Luckily for me, Paramount rented it before I signed the final contract. So when I arrived, it was already rented. I was getting money out of it, so I never wanted to touch anything. That's where we're at. I have a nice tenant. He's paying his rent. I am not bothering him. He's not bothering me. It's just the best relationship.
When it comes to visa application, what documents did you have to provide? What lawyers did you have to hire?
Paramount already worked with two firms. One was a really big firm and one was a smaller one, so I decided to go with the smaller one. I could have hired my own lawyer, but I found out that they were going to increase the EB-5 visa amount by fall. I didn't have an exact date, so I had to do things really fast. I took one of the lawyer that they were advising. They already worked on a few other people's files, so they were already ready with the Paramount side. Now it was only my papers. My papers were pretty much asking for no criminal record, making sure that every cent that I am putting into this investment is legal and it's traceable and it is taxable. They went through all my bank accounts. They went through all of my investments. They asked to look at the shares that I owned in all of the properties, investments, restaurants, real estate development that I've been doing, bank accounts of my parents who donated money for me when I was a child. So they wanted to make sure that they had a job and they had this revenue legally. There were a lot of papers.
Are you planning to buy more properties?
Yes and no. I do want to build an estate here and make sure that I have plenty of apartments. But this is not my priority. As I said earlier, I went to school on a public relation major, and this is really the part that I like. I like communicating, I like talking to people. So I'm opening a marketing firm. Having this great feeling with people, especially here in the US, where everybody has been so nice and helpful. I feel like marketing is really in the line of helping people grow their business. It really matches my personality more than being a developer, definitely.
Have you already started it, the marketing company, or is it?
Yes, I did. I am building the website right now, but we are not fully launched yet.
Can I ask the name?
Yes, of course. Power Living with H as in power, her.
Okay.
It appeals to my experience as a woman in a male dominated field. It really was something that impacted my life because the field was so dominated with male that it took me a while to actually feel comfortable and find my place.
Would you have done anything differently knowing what you know now about applying for this investor visa and your whole story? Is there anything you would have changed?
I used to say that I would have loved to stay after my studies. When you finish your student visa, you are usually allowed to stay 1 year on a OPT, optional practical training. That was my biggest regret. This OPT really opens doors into the world of work, meeting people in your field, the field that you studied. It would have been pretty nice to have this experience, to actually get to understand how people work in America before coming and trying to help them. Right now, as I'm opening my marketing firm, I realize that I don't have enough experience in the US market. And so I am really going through a lot of classes, talking to my friends, how they're doing in their jobs and how are the dynamics inside companies that are growing and need to grow, because I cannot offer service if I don't understand how they are functioning. I don't want to come with my European background and be like, you should do this. It's different. The culture is different. The work culture is pretty different. I don't want to impose things that are working in one country that are not going to work here. This is very important to understand the culture and acknowledge the differences.
What do you like about America the most?
I absolutely adore how genuinely nice people are. I see this kindness everywhere. Here in Miami, it's a real mix of cultures, so many people from different backgrounds. But I also have a cousin who lives in Nashville, and I've never seen kinder people. People are very sweet, and I remember she used to work for a well known company. The main office was in Seattle or San Francisco, but they had their customer service in Nashville because people are just extremely kind. This is really something that strikes me compared to Paris, people being rude or being very impatient. I also absolutely adore the patriotism that comes with the American culture. Seeing flags everywhere, people who actually proudly display the American flags, schools with the Pledge of Allegiance. That's not something that I'm used to in France.
Is there anything you don't like?
There is a little bit of narrow mindedness around the fact that there are the main big culture, and sometimes there are things that they are pressuring you to like or to stand for. It would be politics, it would be some new cultural trend, it could even be about a singer. If you don't like this singer, you are not one of us. You are so. And I'm like, well, it's not my favorite singer. I don't even want to listen to this song, but if it plays on the radio, that's fine.
What about measuring?
Definitely one of the least favorites. I cannot count how many papers I have taped in my kitchen to try to measure, but it's not working. I'm always converting. I change my AC unit in Celsius because I'm
You
not.
too?
Yes, I'm not understanding, but I do have an idea. Somehow I know, freezing water is 32 Fahrenheit. So our zero is 32 Fahrenheit. And so I know when I'm talking to my friends, well, I went to New York and it was snowing. Can you believe it was under zero? So under 32, over zero, over 32. It's just a way of, trying to explain to my friends, but it's really hard. And the fact also that a lot of our friends are immigrants here, they understand Celsius, so we can talk with them.
When I moved here, they're like, "How tall are you?" I'm like, "I'm 163." What is that? Like, what are you talking
Right.
about? Oh, sorry, I'm 5'3". So you have to learn like how tall are you in a different numbers, so your weight, right? Pounds, and then when you want to cook, the ounces and cups and like every recipe, I have no idea how much of anything I should put in when I have American
Exactly.
recipe. And then even like miles, kilometers, when we say in Slovakia, we say it's 30 kilometers away. They say it's 30 minutes away. I'm like, but how far? The minutes is not how far. It's totally different.
And the distances here, because even if you understand miles, traffic is so unusual, and also blocks around building, you can be really far in a walking distance, and people don't really walk here.
They don't. Yeah.
But you would take the car and be like 3 minutes away. So unusual.
Yeah. Did America fulfill your expectations?
On most part, I would say yes. What about you?
Yes, it did. As I usually say, it exceeded my expectations because I had an idea about the US from the movies, but once you are actually here, it's so overwhelming, and like seeing skyscrapers for the first time, and it's totally different culture. I always feel like I live in a paradise, especially Miami. It feels like paradise with the blue skies and sunsets and everything. It's
It is beautiful.
You have to experience it to actually understand, because my family sometimes they don't understand, like, why would you move so far away? I'm like, you have to come and see. I cannot speak of it and so that you can understand. You just have to be here and see what's going on.
And the life in Miami is very different from being a tourist here. People are amazing. The cultures, the food, and I on purpose said cultures plural because so many cultures are meeting in Miami that it makes its uniqueness.
And how do you feel about the food?
I love it. I haven't even decided which food is my favorite. I can go for Mexican and Oriental and oh my god, like all in the same day or do a whole tour of the world in a whole week.
I love it. I love the choice. Like, even here, when I go out of my building, I have a Peruvian restaurant, I have Mexican restaurant, around the corner is Austrian restaurant, and there's Cuban restaurant. So every day you can eat different food from different culture. I love it.
Exactly. That's perfectly summed up.